Well, after 3 very plot-driven episodes, it is finally time to get back to basics in what is by far one of the show's most powerful episodes yet. Hey guys, camera for Girl Meets World, Season 3, Episode 11, Girl Meets the Real World, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode. Sorry that it took me so long to review this episode. I meant to review it this weekend, but I had a very busy weekend, so I just didn't really have time to review a lot of stuff, as you guys know. I wanted to focus on Stranger Things, but finally I was able to watch this episode, and I was really looking forward to this episode, obviously, because, you know, it's a Girl Meets World episode in general. I'm always looking forward to it. But also because it's the first episode in a while that doesn't really have, you know, a recurring storyline. The past 3 episodes we have been extremely plot heavy, and they've all really contributed to the main story. And while this one did as well, it's more of one of those lesson episodes and, you know, less of, you know, something like the love triangle, which I'm glad that we're done with. And overall, I mean, I thought this was an amazing episode. I really did love this episode overall, and like I said, I think it's one of the most powerful episodes this show has really done. And when Michael Jacobs said that he wanted to do more serious type stories and less of just ridiculous stuff, this is definitely, I think, the direction that he was talking about, because this is exactly what I want to see Girl Meets World do. But let's get in this episode because I really do want to talk about it overall, because obviously there was some really good stuff here. So the main plot of this episode has Riley on this debate team, and she's talking about something as simple as, does the sun come out at night? And, you know, does the sun come out in the morning? You know, that's when the sun rises, and of course, obviously it does. However, Farkle, who's the opposing side, looks at it in a different way. He doesn't question he questions the logistics of it. He makes it into a more scientific explanation. And of course, that is how Farkle is, of course. And I love that Smackle is the one that's kind of making him give these answers. I thought that was kind of funny to watch. The way that Smackle's kind of like influencing his answers, that was pretty funny. And especially seeing when she's like, is it hot in here? I thought that was pretty hilarious. And, Riley really doesn't understand what Farkle's talking about, because, you know, Farkle talks about when you're on a debate team that you always have to have good evidence for both sides, and that very much is true. I haven't been on a debate team, but I know that one of the biggest parts of debating is being able to go with both sides. It's just like writing a persuasive essay. When you're trying to persuade someone, you know, one of the best things about an essay like that is put in an alternate proposal or say what another party would say, and that's something that Riley doesn't really know how to do. Why? Because Riley always looks at things in a very black and white way, and that's just how Riley is as a character. It's not a character flaw. I heard a lot of people say it's annoying, but that's just how Riley is. She's someone that looks at everyone as good or bad. She sees the good in everything, and that's evidently present once Corey asks her the biggest question in the episode, and the main question, which is, are people inherently good or evil? She immediately responds good, but she realizes that that might not actually be the case, that there might actually be bad people out there. You know, Farkle's trying to tell her that there are bad people, and Farkle's response is bad, and Riley just doesn't really see it that way, because she doesn't look at things in that way. She looks at things in a much more positive way. That's how Riley's always been. That's one of the things I've always loved about Riley's character, is how positive a character she really is. So what happens is her and Maya go on the computer to look at articles, and they're finding things from like so many years ago of all these things that happened about beaches and things like that, and this is stuff that Riley really didn't know about, like how their beach is completely polluted. I mean, there's trash everywhere, and it's to the point where people can't even walk there. And there's a very good, at first, subplot with Augie, and you're thinking, oh, this is going to be a typical Topanga Augie plot. What I really loved is that it's not a subplot. It has to contribute to the main story, and I really did love that. We'll get into that in a second. But what ends up happening is, as they're coming across these different articles, we see that Riley ends up seeing stuff from the news and realizes just all the shit that's really going on. And it's this really great scene where her and Mai just look at things, and there's no joke or anything, because it's not a laughing matter. I mean, bad things happen, such as terrorism and things like that. And I was surprised they actually talked about this stuff, but they did. They actually really got into it. And this is something I think they handled very well. They really got into the subject of bad things happen and you just gotta kind of be aware of it. And this is something that clearly Lucas and Farkle, they say they've kind of tried to shelter her from, because that's Riley's nature, that she's just good and they didn't want to ruin that about her. But now that she knows this, she feels kind of broken, because she feels like everything she stands for and everything she's known her entire life has kind of been a lie. Think about it. I mean, think of if you didn't know all the crazy things that were going on in the world. You would probably be in the same exact situation as Riley, especially if you're someone that's as positive as Riley. And I think they handled it really well. I definitely really like that, because at this point, Riley's saying, you know, that she's bad. She's like, all right, I'm a bad person. I got to do something bad. And of course, everyone's laughing when she does that. And I love the first thing that Riley does is just call everyone bad names. Thing is that that was pretty funny. I definitely really did like that. And then they each kind of go around and talk about things that they feel bad about. And I loved Smackles getting very close to saying her and Lucas fucking on the beach. I thought that was hilarious. I love that. And the fact that Disney almost didn't censor that, I think is just, that is enough of a reason why the show needs to go to Freeform. I mean, that's stuff like that. That's awesome. I thought that was hilarious, and the way that Farkle stopped her, I thought was very funny. Even though with Lucas and Riley together, you know, I don't think Smackle will ever not like Lucas. She'll always have a crush on him, and I think that's always going to be there. Which again, it's a lot of fun to watch. And something I do want to point out about that, a lot of people are talking about how it doesn't really make sense. Remember, Smackle has Asperger's, and Asperger's is something where you'll just blurt out something randomly, and things you think in your head, you say. You don't have any filter, and that's something with Smackle. She doesn't have a filter because of her Asperger's, and I think while it's funny, I mean, they are addressing it. You know, they're still showing, so keep in mind, remember, she has Asperger's. I know they don't really address it, but that's because of the things she says. You know, she's supposed to be a quirky character, and that's one of her flaws, and I think that's something they showed very well with that. And I kind of forgot about it, actually, but, you know, it reminded me of that. I thought it was kind of cool the way they did that. But anyway, Riley really wants to do something bad, and then we are set up for the inciting incident where Zay comes in with his grandma's cookies and basically says that his grandma makes the best cookies and that his grandma isn't going to live for that much longer. She's getting pretty old. We basically assume she's going to die, and Riley takes a bite of the cookie. This obviously freaks Zay out, and she doesn't seem to have any remorse over it, and this kind of sets her for the down spiral for the rest of the episode. Now, as ridiculous as this was, it works very well, because at first I was worried, I'm like, a cookie? Really? That's what you're gonna do? But when you really think about it, what Riley did, she didn't eat the cookie just to eat the cookie. She did it to make Zay generally upset, and she wanted to do something that was generally bad, and it's something that we didn't really know that Riley was capable of. But then this kind of makes her lose herself for a little bit. For this episode, she kind of starts to lose herself, and she starts kind of acting like the way she did in Riley Town, which I kind of wanted to see her meet up with that bully. I really thought that's where we were heading here, that she was going to finally meet, she was going to finally realize who the bully was from Riley Town, and that was going to be the person to pull her out of this. That's what I thought was going to happen. But it never, you know, unfortunately did not happen here. I just think it would add to the episode a little bit more. And I do think that Riley could have done something just a little bit worse, but she has this conversation with Maya that she did not give Two Shoes Louie, I guess the homeless person on the streets, $2. You know, she always gives him money, but she didn't give him money. She passed by him, and she feels that she's now a terrible person, and she feels like she just is going to be evil from now on, and that there's nothing good about her. And you can honestly really understand why she feels this way, because she feels that there's just something in her that was gone. You know, there was a Riley in her once, but now that's gone, and she feels that she can't be happy, and she can't be her positive self when all of these terrorist things are going on, and beaches, and people are, and there's pollution and things like that. She doesn't really know how to go on with the world, because that's the world. And, you know, she talks about how it's preparing her for life. She's not just preparing, and I love the scene where Maya asks you preparing for the debate. She says yes, but she also says and life, because Riley finally is waking up and realizing what the world is really like. The world's a very scary place. I mean, when you really get out into that world, it's a scary place, really. I mean, a lot of people say there's nothing scarier than the real world, and that's something that a lot of people are afraid of, but Riley clearly is someone who wasn't prepared for it, and now she is prepared for it, and I think it's something that's very interesting to watch here. So we see her this conversation with Corey. Corey doesn't really know what she's talking about exactly, obviously, because he knows that his daughter's not actually bad. But then we get this really good scene between Riley and Augie that I really did love. I really did love the way this scene was done. I thought there was some very good stuff here, where she asked Augie if he's on a down spiral because of what happened with Topanga, and he said that he wasn't, because of the fact that he couldn't even go near the beach, because you couldn't even walk on the beach with your bare feet, because if you step anywhere, you could cut yourself because there's glass. And again, it's a small thing, but it really does make a lot of sense. I mean, these are just things that we kind of just have to deal with, and that's the main point in this episode, is that, yeah, there's bad out there, but it's how you deal with it is how it really is what it's all about. It's not about are people inherently good or bad. It's more about how people deal with things. Everyone has bad days. Everyone does something bad. And I love the part where Maya is with Riley and tells her that everyone does something bad, and when you do one bad thing, that carries over, and you just keep doing bad things until you decide to stop. And that really is true. I mean, if you do one bad thing, it's probably going to be followed by something else that's bad. And Riley not paying Two Shoes Louie, of course, is a lot worse than her eating Zay's cookie, but that really is what set all this up. And her eating cereal without a spoon, I mean, that it's ridiculous, but again, it makes sense, because this is Riley's version of being bad. And I love that she calls her bad self Sassy Halter Top. You know, that's what she calls, and she listens to that persona and she's giving into it, and that's something that a lot of people have a problem with in high school. I had a problem with it my freshman year. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I really did. I mean, I always did the wrong thing. I always felt that I needed to do the wrong thing, and sometimes the best thing to do is the wrong thing, but it's something that especially freshmen really deal with, and it really makes sense for Riley to deal with it. Now, yeah, it's kind of silly the way she did, but I did like the way they addressed it there, and I like that Augie really was the one to wake her up, making her realize that there is good in the world and there is bad in the world. So we go to the debate scene, and it's a very well done scene where basically we see everyone talking in the debates and talking about how they've lost Riley. They don't know what happened to her. And I felt really bad for Riley in this instant, because again, you know, she's someone that isn't herself right now. She's someone that's very much affected by what happened in Chucksville. This is a world where, you know, people are getting killed and things like that, and all these terrible things are happening, and she doesn't really know how to control it, and she realizes she can't control it, but then she looks at it the other way, that there's a kid that wanted to see a starfish, because remember, that's what Augie really wanted. He wanted to see a starfish, and that childlike, whimsical part of us just goes away, and she talks about when we are born, we decide whether we're good or bad, but that's really not how it works. I mean, a lot of people do look at life that way. Believe it or not, a lot of people do think that, but that's not really how it works, of course. I mean, you know, really, you might start off one way. When you're a child, you're most likely going to be more positive, but then you grow up and you just become more aware, and as you become more aware, that positivity in you does dwindle down a bit, but you have to hold on to it, and that's something that Riley, I don't think, really knows how to do. I did like her apologizing to Zay. I thought it was definitely funny. I like that Zay didn't forgive her at first, but I thought it was funny when she sang the song to him and everything was good there. I thought that was definitely well done. I do think they could have taken this a little bit farther. That's really my only thing, is I think they could have taken this just a little bit farther than they did, but it really did make up everything in this episode that was silly, really made up for the final scene. The final scene in this episode, I think, really does show how real Girl Meets World is willing to get at points, because this is a show that, yeah, can be really silly and really ridiculous, but it has these fantastic moments, and a lot of times it does this. I mean, this is one of the reasons I love the show. It has these great moments of realism and just really heartwarming stuff, and that is a great example with this last scene, where we meet the character of Two Shoes Louie, who I love this character. I really hope we see more of him, but Two Shoes Louie, this is a guy that clearly is homeless, but he makes basically he makes every day feel like his last. He lives every day to the fullest. You can tell he's always positive, and you can tell that he doesn't really treat himself like he's homeless. You know, we see Riley and Maya, they go to him to give him food, and he talks about how he wanted Riley to be the one to pay him the $2, but of course he knew that the Riley saying before him was not the Riley he knew, and I love when he gave her $2, got up, comes back, and then she finally gives him the $2, realizing she is ready to give it to him. Just a really nice scene. I really love the way that was done, and I think the actor that played him, Justin Dre, I was a bit worried because this was a character that was in Austin and Ally, and I really hate his character, I have to say. I thought he was a really annoying character, but I think he did a great job in this role. I really loved what he did here, and just in those 2 minutes that he was here, really did make an impression in me. I really like what he did. I thought it was very well done, the way they did that scene, and maybe one of the best scenes of the season. I really loved everything about that scene. I think it was very heartwarming, very emotional, and really got the message that the episode was trying to get across very well, and just, I think, really put the episode to an end very well. So like I said, for me, I really did love this episode. Like I said, I think my only complaints with this episode, and I have two. One, like I said, I think Riley just could have done something a little bit further. They could have taken this a little bit further, because her eating Cookie, I mean, it makes sense, obviously, but I just kind of wanted something more, because it just seemed a little silly, but it made sense why they did that. I get that, obviously, it was supposed to be something small for Riley, because one small thing can escalate to something bigger, and I got that, but Riley didn't do anything that bad. She kind of just thought that, you know, she was a bad person because she did that, which I thought was interesting to watch. But my only other complaint I have to say is that I really didn't see Riley and Lucas change that much. As we know, they're now deciding to be a couple, and you barely see in this episode. I mean, when you look at someone like Smackle and Farkle, I mean, I could turn on any episode and I know those two are dating. You can just tell from the way they talk, the way that they interact with each other. I mean, 100% of most of their conversations are either sexual innuendos, which there have been a lot of them, definitely. You can look it up. There's been a shit ton of sexual innuendos, or just flirting stuff. It's all that between Farkle and Smackle. Riley and Lucas, not so much, and that's not to say that they don't have good chemistry, they definitely do, but I just didn't really see them dating in this episode. It was kind of strange, especially now this love triangle's over. I thought they were really going to take some liberties into using that, you know, letting these two be together and be coupley and everything, and they just didn't really do that. I thought it was kind of strange the way they did that, but anyway, it doesn't really matter, just kind of a nitpick thing I had. I'm sure we're going to see more of that in other episodes, but either way, I really did love this episode. I thought it was a very well done message, and I love the way this episode just got really dark very fast, and I can totally understand why it got dark, because this really was an episode where something really came, you know, that haunted Riley. Riley never knew about this darkness in the world. She never knew about all this crazy stuff going on, or at least I think she did, but she tried to shelter herself from it, and realizing all this was going on, she just couldn't look at the world the same, and it really shows that, you know, it's kind of just how you perceive things, and Riley needs to move on with it, and I thought that was a very well done scene. I really liked the episode overall, and I think the message is something that a lot of people can definitely relate to. I mean, I definitely can relate to, in the sense that you don't want to think about all these terrible things that are going on. When I hear about plane crashes, things like that, my reaction nowadays is, oh, of course it happened, and that shouldn't be my reaction, but it is, because it's so common nowadays. I mean, every week you hear about like a plane crash or something like that, and that's something that I think Girl Meets World conveyed very well, in the sense that this is our world, and there's not much we can really do about it except live in it, and we live in it till we're not living in it anymore, and it's sad to see, but that really is the world. And moments like that, when Girl Meets World gets real and raw and doesn't try to hold back, I think that's what really made this episode great. I just feel that something like eating a cookie doesn't really translate with, you know, beach pollution and terrorism and things like that. Stuff that the episode was trying to get across. I just feel Riley should have done something a little bit more evil, like maybe confront the bully from the bullying episode. I wanted to see her do that. I think it would have been more interesting if she did that. But anyway, let me know what you guys saw this episode. Love to hear your thoughts on it. I really did love this episode overall. I know I'm nitpicking and things like that, but I just kind of feel like they could have done something a little bit more. But I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for I think it's gonna be either for the series premiere of the Get Down or for the season of Casual, because Casual ends tonight, and I'm gonna review the season tomorrow, so I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.